This week on the podcast, we're going to dive into those how do you know questions when it comes to retirement strategizing, retirement planning with Coach John Mears here on Red Zone Retirement Program.
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with Coach and I as we talk investing, finance, retirement. That's my average line that I say just about every time.
And football.
And football, there you go. And football as well. And right, we're going to talk a little bit. I got 5 questions, Coach, I want to toss at you about the how do we knows, right? Mm-hmm. Remember being like a little kid, or even like when your kids were kids, I guess, right? And they would kind of hit you with that, well, why? Mm-hmm. Well, how do you know? Well, I just know. Mm-hmm. Stop asking me, Johnny.
It just is, because I said so.
It just is, because I said so. Right. But, the curiosity doesn't stop as we get older. It just shifts a little bit, right? So let's talk a little bit about, like, how do we know some basic things or some good things that we should know in retirement? Mm-hmm. What's going on? How you doing this week?
Doing good. We're embarking on football season. I'm the head JV coach at the local high school, and they're
Foosball.
All yes. It's also hot. We've practiced in 100-degree heat, but yeah, we've survived, and we're ready to get rolling here. And the one thing about the questions that we're asking today is, I've always encouraged my kids to be curious. I think that's curiosity is what we all want to foster as parents. And so that's okay. I always tell my clients, it's okay to ask questions. I'd rather you ask them than wonder. These are things, if it's on your mind, and that's one reason why we do this podcast. If it's on one person's mind, it's oftentimes on other people's minds.
There's a good chance,
so
yeah.
Absolutely great questions that we're going to talk about today.
Yes. Well, let's dive in. Number 1, how do you know how much income you're going to need in retirement? I mean, hey, this is a pretty important one, right? How much income do we need? How do you figure that out? Well, there's a couple of ways, and you can do the back of the napkin thing too, which maybe is not a terrible idea to get you ballparking it, but you want to be a little bit more accurate than just ballparking back of the napkin.
There's always 2 avenues we can go with this, and that is based on your current income and kind of knowing that, okay, we're surviving right now off of, making up a number here, $8,000 a month or whatever it may be,
right?
Or actually doing a budget. Sometimes people are afraid to do that. Yes, I do like to have my clients, especially if they're onboarding new clients, to kind of go through. I have a very simplistic way of doing things, but I think it works. That's just take your last month's bank statement and last month's credit card statement, and I actually have people go put in either a 0, which means it doesn't mean anything, or a plus or a minus if it's something that they either must have or they don't need to have, and kind of go through that. I can certainly verify that most people going through 1 month's bank statement and credit card statement, you can probably lop off at least 5%, if not 10% of your monthly expenditures. Just by going through the minuses, we all have that Fubo account that we never use. It costs $85 a month for whatever reason. We signed up for it because we had to see that one big game that we didn't need to see again, or we have that gym membership, which sorry to say, some of us don't use all the time either. So you kind of go through this. Most of this is recurring expenses. Some of it may have been expense that, looking back, do we really need that? But you go through the budget very quickly, and then I actually will have a worksheet that I'll go through. If somebody is inclined, I'll let them do it. Otherwise, I'll help them out with it. But I do think you kind of have to know where your expenses are at, and then we add to that as we go, moving into the future. We want to make sure that we know what we have to cover each month. That's money we absolutely have to have each month. And then we also have the fun money, which will be vacation money, if you will. And then down the road, we're looking at medical care further down the road. We also have to adjust for inflation. We're going to talk about inflation in a second here. But I think that I'm an old accountant by nature, and so I do like to work through a budget. I don't want to spend 50 hours on it. I tell people if we can't do it within 15 minutes or so, we're overthinking it here. That is something where we can, again, just whip through it and kind of do some quick math and figure that out. Also remember that your budget that you have right now is not necessarily the budget you're going to have forever, because if you are working, you may be spending money on going out more, or you may be spending on gas, or sometimes you have a 2-car family, you can reduce yourself down to 1-car family, so on and so forth. So we're looking at, I do like to look at the budget rather than just what your income is right now and what you're living off of. that's kind of how I start. And then we actually do the math. We actually project the math out. I don't go much more than 20 years, but really anything beyond 3 to 5 years is a crapshoot. So we just want to kind of know where you're going to be at for your budgetary needs moving forward. So that's kind of where I look at what your income needs to be. And again, I start with your must-have income, and then your wants after that. So
now you're talking about budgeting out, or talking about the income budgeting for 20 years, 3 to 5, because things are going to change, right? Is that why you're saying you don't go much further than the 5?
Yeah, we just don't know. It's the old saying that even when we do a financial plan, sometimes it must be fluid. That's why we want to meet,
it has to be,
on an annual basis, just to kind of go over things, if nothing else. I get it. For some people, they can get by maybe every other year because things don't change as rapidly. But
right.
We do want to continue to update this because things do happen. There's a stronger word I would use there, but stuff happens. So we have to be prepared for this, whether there is, again, a new budgetary need, or there's a new income inflow, or an income inflow you thought you had that wasn't going to be what you perhaps perceived it to be when you first did the planning.
All right, so let's go to the next one, Coach. How much risk do we need to have, or how much risk do we have? And this is going to change as well, obviously, as we age. I don't know about you, but I don't jump on the old skateboard anymore because I don't like the risk.
Well, I don't know about you. I still got it. Okay.
Hey,
yeah,
I bow down before your skateboarding skills.
or in football, I used to be the guy who had turned my hat on backwards. I was going to demonstrate something, and all the kids
hit the sled.
Oh, Coach is serious now. Those days aren't gone. I don't flip the hat around anymore. I just point to Jimmy. Hey, show him how to do it.
If you hit the sled to show them how to push it, that's when you turn to your other coach and go, "Take over. I'll be back."
Exactly. Yes. So those days are gone. So risk actually comes in many different forms too. I think what we look at is our market risk. That's kind of the thing we all look at to start with. And so there are different levels of risk that we have. And I do believe, that this is factually correct, that there is something called the capital asset pricing model, which is a big phrase saying that depending on whatever amount of risk you have, there's going to be a commensurate level of return. They always end up, no matter where they're at today, if you have a too high of return based on the risk, it always reverts to the mean over time. Sometimes it may take several years, but it will. You're not going to get something for nothing. We all know that. So if something has very low risk, the returns are going to go down with it. You're just not going to be able to achieve the high premiums if you have very little risk. It's just not going to last that long. Conversely, you're not going to. If you have something that is high risk, you will be rewarded for it. That's just how it works. But market risk is something that we do talk about as you age. As you get further along. Now we're going to be talking about this in a second again when we get to inflation, but you need to have some sort of equities. You need to have some sort of stocks, but the stock market will fluctuate, which is why we want to have a bond portion, or as I like to call it, a war chest. You want to have this war chest of stable bonds that don't fluctuate. Yes, I know what happened in 2022, but generally speaking, the bond market is very stable, and we want to keep that war chest stable so that we can continue getting our distributions in retirement. However, there are other types of risks that we forget about. So we're talking about market risk, which is the first thing people ask about. But there's also what I would call inflation risk, what I just was referring to. So there's the old saying that if you right now, cash is king. People want to just put money in the money market. It's paying the Schwab managed money as we're recording this is around 5%. Really good. I have clients doing that. However, what I am concerned with people that they're not going to outpace inflation and still have some growth to maintain the portfolio. So I was just talking to a client the other day that you're trying to be safe, but you're going to go broke safely. So it's going to feel comfortable as you continue that wind down. Sometimes the market is uncomfortable. And again, as we're recording this, we've had a couple of jittery days in the last few weeks.
Yeah, this is mid-August. This is our mid-August episode. And August, 2nd, I think, and 5th or 6th was not very good, especially tech days.
Yeah, we had some bumpy rides. And I had a couple of clients, not many, but I had a couple that asked, "Hey, the market, what's going on?" And I just tell them, and I hate to be too flippant about it, but the market's volatile. That's what it is. The market's volatile. Let's get on the next question here because that's just the way the markets go. But
and I think it's fair, John, that people do. Occasionally they get a little panicked when you see the headlines of things like the NASDAQ suffers its biggest setback in 50 years. That makes people nervous, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I get it. And it is factual, but again, it was kind of due, especially on the tech side, for a bit of a pullback. Of course, I was joking. I was like, hey, look, the week before Warren Buffett started selling off Apple, you should have saw the writing on the wall. But
yes,
anyway.
Oracle of Omaha. Yeah, he has his reasons for doing stuff. But yeah. So there's again the market. When we talk about market risk, that is real. We do have to pay attention to that. But we also have to pay attention to inflation risk. I also like to point out there's liquidity risk out there. When clients come to me and they want to get involved in real estate, and I'm not opposed to real estate. I don't want to say that at all. If it's part of your overall plan, if it's something you want to do, great. But understand there is massive liquidity risk when you're doing real estate. If you need money, if you have money in a money market, we can get to you money that sometimes that same day, at the very least the next day. But if you have money sitting in an apartment building, you may have $1 million in equity, quite literally, and not be able to get to it. So that's something that you always want to be able to pay attention to. And also why we also talked about the HECM a couple of episodes ago, why you might want to have some sort of reverse mortgage or some sort of access to the cash within that property. But there are different types of risk. We all focus on market risk. Absolutely. We should start with that, but also don't ignore inflation risk and also don't ignore liquidity risk.
Yeah. And then let's not forget the risk multiplier that is longevity risk. So the longer we hang out on this rock, the more chances we have to be exposed to all those other kinds of risks.
Yes, we're going to be talking about that here in a second, is how long. So, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. So how long do we need our savings to last, Coach? I mean, we've been building this thing up. How long should we be looking at here?
I don't know.
Well, there you go. Thanks for hanging out, folks. We'll see you next time.
So, but we really don't know. This is the great question here.
Do you have a stamp on your arm that says when you're going to die?
Yeah, there is an app out there that says how long. Believe it or not, you can download this on your Apple phone, but it kind of takes into some, your height, your weight, your age, all that stuff. And it kind of tells you, you got 17 years left or something like that.
Really? Who would want to do that?
It's crazy. Yeah. But anyway, we don't know. And I always tell people they're coming into my office. I always say there's two things that, when we're trying to do our retirement planning, there's two variables that we need to account for. One is, we don't know what the markets are going to do. We have no idea what they're going to do over the next 30 years. Year to year, we have no idea. And secondly,
I know what they're going to do.
They're going to be volatile. Yes.
They're going to do this and this,
yes,
and this and this and this and this, and a little bit of this.
Yeah. So it's going to be volatile. So we don't know what the markets are going to do. That's the variable number one. And variable number two is we have no idea how long you're going to be in retirement. We have no idea when you're going to die. So those are two huge variables we need to account for. And so this is why I talk to people about the dynamic distribution strategy, or the guardrails, which I talk about all the time. So what we do is we kind of come up with, again, using a moderate portfolio for the average retiree that comes here, probably a 60-40 portfolio with 60% stocks, 40% bonds. And at that rate, the academic literature suggests you can have a withdrawal rate of around 5.4%. Well, if that's where we're at and we're kind of getting back to the budgetary issues, we kind of work around that budget at that 5.4% rate. So that if we are doing a prudent distribution here, we should be able to never outlive our money if we're in that guardrail area. That's the whole point to the guardrails, is that it's going to last, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, forever, because nothing's guaranteed. But when the market goes up, we can actually increase your monthly distribution. When the market goes down, we will systematically reduce your distribution ever so slightly, allowing you to kind of ebb and flow ever so slightly through and glide through retirement successfully. So we don't know, but it is possible to have a plan that accounts for that unknowable information.
Okay. All right. So we're going through these questions of how do we know, and we could probably do this for about 20 of them, but we're just going to do 5 of them today. How do we know when to turn on Mr. Social Security? Again, this one's been beat to death about 1 million times. If you are saying because you want to stick it to the man and get your money back, come on. I mean, first of all, I get it. It is our money, and I get it. We could have a whole other podcast about could you do more with the money on your own than having to put it into this program, but it is what it is. The rules are what they are. So I think, is this just truly a math question on this one, Coach? It's like, just once you figure out the other income variables, then Social Security, or what?
That is basically how I operate. Now we will spreadsheet this all out, yes, but I do look at there is math here. So before
Sure.
the full retirement age, which is 67 now, you're basically penalized, and I'm going to rough it out, about 8% per year, all the way back to age 62. So you have a massive reduction in what your
It's a big haircut. Yeah.
It is a big haircut, and then you still get a little bit of a raise if you can wait till you're age 70. So
Yeah.
from full retirement age up to 70, you get a little bit of a bonus.
Is
These
what is it
bonuses
around?
are-
Is it around 6% on average up to full retirement, and then around 8% to full
Yes.
to 70?
Kind of around there, yeah. So you're talking about around a 30% drop on the other end and an 8% on the way up. And it's not exact, but kind of in those ranges.
Yeah.
That's a massive, massive
Yeah,
drop.
man.
So
Yeah.
there's a couple things I tell people. First of all, we talked about longevity risk just a second ago, right?
Right.
Well, Social Security you can't outlive. Social Security will go on forever. If you
For
live to
now.
110, you win. So it's set
For now.
set up that way. Yeah. And I also tell people Social Security, you're also not doing it for yourself. You're also doing it for your spouse. Because if
That's a
something
great point,
happens
though.
to you, the spouse is the one who's going to basically get your rate
Yeah.
after that.
Especially, Coach, when people are like, I'm turning it on because it's going to run out. I mean, I just made that joke myself, right, for now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people are like, I'm turning it on before it runs out. But, if you're wrong and you have a longevity, or even if you don't and you pass away early, what have you done to your spouse? Because they're only going to get one of two. They're not getting yours and theirs when you die, right?
Correct. Mhm.
So, sometimes this, I mean, I know they took away things like file and suspend, but you could still look at this basic strategy of saying, okay, who has the higher Social Security, and do we let that one build until 70, maybe, if the math says so, right? So that you enjoy it while you're here, and then when you pass, the person left behind gets that higher amount.
Yes.
That's worthwhile conversation.
Yes, and that is where I would say the bulk of the strategies go with Social Security is just exactly what you described. So again, you're doing it not for yourself, but you're also doing it for your spouse. And then again, this longevity risk is a huge thing. And then again, you get a little bit of bonus. Whatever you choose to do, you're locking it in. So if you decide to do it at age 62 with that massive haircut we talked about, a 30% reduction, that is it for life. You made a big commitment, a big decision that you are stuck with. You just are.
Yeah, and that could be a lot of money over time, like a lot of money.
Correct.
So, yeah, absolutely. Well, blow the whistle. Let's do the 2-minute warning. All right, we're into the 2-minute warning here, Coach. So we went through some things, the how do you know questions, some good 5 questions for folks to think about. Let's take an actual question from one of the listeners and folks that send stuff into your website. And this is Marty. He says, I've heard that you need between 15 and 20 times your annual salary in savings to be able to retire comfortably. Do you think that is accurate in today's world?
That is a great question. And we kind of have answered it already in this podcast because, yes, the math works out. So I'm going to say yes first, and then we're going to add all the caveats here. That if you are making, let's say, $50,000 and you want to continue to make $50,000 in retirement at a distribution rate for a 60-40 portfolio, you need to have about $1 million to take out a 5.4% distribution. That's around $50,000 a year. So yes, that'd be around 20 times. Yes, that is accurate. However, let's talk about the budget. We kicked off here. The budget may allow you to have lower expenses each month. And then secondly, we're ignoring Social Security here. So you may not need all this to make your, continue down that path of whatever you're earning right now. Social Security may be a factor here as well. So you may only need half of what you need. And with a dynamic distribution strategy, we can kind of navigate through those waters as well. But assuming that you've been working your entire lifetime, your Social Security benefits may be strong. I'm making up a number here, but let's say they're around $3,000 a month. You might only need $2,000 a month in retirement. And at that rate, you could probably save a lot less. Now, we want to encourage you to save as much as you can because there are other things going on in life, such as, again, we talked about long-term care. If you want to have some fun money right now, and this is why, again, we look at the equity in your home. So we're looking at a bunch of different things that we're trying to tie all this together. So the rule of thumb, the math is correct, but in real life, when we're actually doing a financial plan, there's a whole lot more that goes into that than just that.
Well, and one of the things you got to keep in mind is if you've got all that money saved in a tax deferred account, you've got a little partner waiting on it. So if you need some help there, check this out.
John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by RescueMyRetirement.net. That's RescueMyRetirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's RescueMyRetirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California.
All right, that's going to do it this week for the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. So, look, there's basic questions that we've got to ask ourselves in retirement. We really need to know the answer to some of these things. The accumulation phase and building up and growing our wealth is a lot easier than coming back down the mountain, which is AKA retirement. So, if you need some help, reach out to Coach. Don't forget to check the show notes in whatever podcasting app you like using, whether it's audio form like Apple or Spotify, or on video form on YouTube. In the show descriptions, we have links to his website. We have links to how to go pick up a copy of his book or book a chat with John.net, So we got all that stuff in the show note description. So just go check that out if you need to reach out and get yourself on to the calendar. And Coach, thanks for hanging out. Good luck with scrimmage this week, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time here on Red Zone Retirement Program, Simple Investing, Smart Future with Coach John Mears.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.